Hi everybody, Levi here, and today we're going to talk about an interesting subject, but let's start with a joke, a classic if you like. How do you get a guitar player to shut up? Put some music in front of him. A classic, of course. Yes, today we are talking about sight reading and reading skills. Let's crack on. Now, of course, if you are new to my channel, please do hit that subscribe button and, of course, that bell notification. And comments are usually very helpful too. So let's start with a question. Are you interested in the subject of sight reading? Do you have any sight reading or reading skills ability as it stands? And if so, where are your sight reading skills? And then finally, where would you like your sight reading skills to be? Is it something that is required as part of your musical endeavors, if you like? And that's really important. I think before you start dealing in the subject of sight reading, you really need to decide if it's a skill that you need to or want to develop. I'm not going to lie to you, learning to read music on the guitar takes a long time and a lot of effort. And generally speaking, for most of my students, I don't actually teach them anything to do with reading because it takes so long to do. And every single second that could be placed into that learning to read could be a second that we could use for something else, like training your ear, being able to hear chords, being able to hear harmony, being able to improvise over changes, all of these other aspects of music that also take a lot of time. You need to really decide if sight reading is something that is applicable to you as a musician. Is it a valuable skill for you? I learned to sight read very effectively, especially when I was at music school. But I've never ever been paid to read anything, and I've been working professionally in the industry for the best part of 15 years now. Never been paid to read anything, not once. Now, reading is still a relatively useful skill for me because I learn a lot from books that aren't guitar books. I learn a lot from saxophone books. I learn a lot from piano books. And of course, I am learning to play the piano at the moment. So my reading has certainly helped progress that on very quickly. But yeah, you definitely need to decide if reading is something that is important to you, because if it's not, honestly, I would recommend you put your energy into other areas that guitar players tend to be lacking in, like I say, your ear, for example. But if you do want to delve into the subject of reading, well, it's important that you understand the three fundamental areas, the three fundamental things that you need to work on in order to become a sight reading maestro. Because it's, of course, you can just kind of tread through treacle by learning what notes are and how to read rhythms and how to apply it all to the guitar and just try and do it all at once. But there are three very distinct skills that are required in order for you to learn to read. But first, I just want to differentiate between the idea of sight reading and reading skills. Sight reading and reading skills. Sight reading is the ability to put a piece of music in front of you and say go and just play it. Just play it, no problems. That's a hard skill to develop. Reading skills, on the other hand, is the ability to put a piece of music in front of you and to be able to work that piece of music out over time without needing any sort of audio recording or any sort of prompts. And that to me is a much, much more useful skill and actually comes in handy helping you to transcribe, because transcription is just reading, but in reverse. You're hearing something and knowing what it looks like written down, rather than seeing something written down and knowing what it's going to sound like. These two things are very interlinked with one another, so definitely helpful in that respect. So, sight reading versus reading skills. Now, the three important aspects of learning to read, or the three exercises, or the three things that we need to really put our time and attention into, are pitch recognition, rhythm recognition, and application to the guitar. Let's start with application to the guitar first, because this is really the part that is difficult for guitar players. What I very quickly learned when playing piano, learning to play piano, reading music for the piano is the equivalent of tab for the guitar. It is incredibly easy to read on the piano because note recognition isn't an issue. When you see a note written on the grand staff for the piano, it doesn't matter where that note is. There's only one place that you can find that note on the piano. So when you get good at being able to identify what a note is when you're reading on the piano, you can instantly play that note. Of course, on the guitar, we have 6 strings, sometimes even beyond that. So when you read a note on the guitar, or when you look at a note, there are often multiple places that you could play that one note. then that, of course, that means when you move on to the next note, there are multiple places that you could play that note, so on and so forth. You get all these branching options. So in that respect, learning to read on the guitar can be very tricky. I have a system in place which I use for teaching this, and it involves a kind of fingering system, if you like, for different keys, which will get you through the bulk of what you need to know. This is a fretboard navigation thing rather than a reading skill thing, but it should not be underestimated. It's very important that you have some sort of rhyme, reason, and order to the things you're doing. But we will come on to that in the next video. The other two aspects that we need to work on are, as I say, pitch recognition or note recognition and rhythm recognition. Now, pitch recognition is extremely easy to practice, extremely easy to practice. This is the ability to look at any note in a written piece of music and be able to identify what note that actually is. Okay, this is, like I say, an easy skill to develop. I did a video previously talking about being able to read notes on the staff. That's incredibly important. I will link to that in the description. It's worth checking out. But of course, if you want me to break it down, we've got Every Good Boy Deserves Fun. Those are our lines on the musical staff, and F, A, C, and E. Those are our lines in the notes in the spaces. In order to practice this, I'm going to encourage you to go away and pick up any book of music that you can get your hands on. I would like to think that if you are learning to read, you probably have some music lying around, right? You want to be able to pick that book up and just every now and again pick it up, go to a random page and look at the notes and just slowly start identifying those pitches. This takes time. You will get faster and faster as you work on this. But trust me, in order to be able to read fluently on the guitar, you need to have that down to a T. Right now I'm staring at a camera and on top of it I can see the word Sony. I don't think about S, O, N and Y. I can see each one of those letters and I don't have to kind of process what they are. I am very familiar with the alphabet, therefore this is easy. So that's our pitch recognition. Rhythm recognition or rhythm reading is a much harder skill to develop. The example that I often give to my students when it comes to pitch recognition versus rhythm recognition is that you can teach a monkey to recognize pitch, to replicate pitch. It's incredibly easy to imitate pitch. It's incredibly easy to identify a visual thing and then assign some sort of information to that. When it comes to rhythm recognition, you have something that I think, I could be wrong on this, but I think is a uniquely human ability, and that's the ability to really understand the passage of time. You think about it, we understand that time moves forward, and we have incredible brains that can really understand things in a high level of detail. Not only can we understand things that happen, but we can also understand how they happen in relation to the passage of time. When it comes to reading music, what we're having to do is understand not just what to play, but where to play it in that passage of time. This is where I will be devoting most of my lesson material to on the subject of reading, because rhythm recognition is the skill that every single musician can be better at. It's the main skill that I have to use when I'm transcribing. Transcribing, again, I can find the notes, that's not a problem, but the ability to accurately notate the rhythms is a much harder skill because it requires that ability to understand where something happened in relation to the passage of time, in relation to a beat, which is something that you are perceiving, as it were. So those are the three areas: application on the instrument, pitch recognition, and rhythm recognition. We have to work on all three of these and we will absolutely get there. Does that make sense? I absolutely hope so. If you have any questions about that, or if you want to get into some discussion on these subjects and how you like to go about working on these, I will, of course, be engaging in that comment section below, so please do hit me up. If you want to go out and get some reading resources for this, which I will reference constantly in this series, my two favourite books are the William Levi book, Melodic Rhythms for Guitar, that's a Berkeley Press book, and the Gary Hess, The Encyclopedia of Reading Rhythms. I'm a big fan of both of those books because they do focus very heavily on the rhythmic side of things, which I do believe is the thing that guitar players are always lacking. Outside of that, of course, any of the William Levi Berkeley Press books I think are wonderful for reading practice, but really you just need a collection of things to read. So Make sure you have a collection of things that you can delve into when we go moving forward with this. I will, of course, be creating some PDFs that will go up on my Patreon for people to download and to practice from. And on that note, I want to say a huge thank you to my wonderful supporters over on Patreon. You guys keep these lessons coming. I know I have been a little bit lax on videos just recently. There is so much going on in my life that I have not told people about on YouTube, but my patrons obviously know, and I really do appreciate your support and understanding during this transitionary period in my life. That sounds quite ominous, doesn't it? Yeah, so thank you very much. Link in the description if you would like to support me over on Patreon. And if you don't want to do that, you can see some of my books over there. Over there. Link in the description. Check them out on Amazon. Your support is very much appreciated. As I say, guys, get involved in that comment section below. I will be engaging with anything that you have to say. Thank you so much for the love, kindness, and support. And I will see you for some more videos, some sight reading videos. Oh, this is something I never thought I'd be teaching on YouTube, especially as I say, it's a subject that I don't generally teach to my students, but I have had a few of you asking. So yeah, see you for some reading videos very soon. Goodbye.